you got a problem with the man, talk that out with him. You know, don't go and try to hurt him or hurt his family. Try to talk that out, because when it goes too far, you can't take it back.
Good evening and welcome to Captions. Again, I'm so glad that you chose Captions, as you have for over 3 decades of supporting Captions. I promise you tonight you're going to hear something that hopefully will not only inspire you and motivate you, but will help you to reach your full potential. I have some special guests this evening, as you can see, and they're all Peorians, so you ought to be able to recognize them without me even telling you their names, but I'm going to say it anyway. Sitting immediately to my left is Agbara Bryson. We also have Maury Douglas, and we also have Carlos Jones. Gentlemen, welcome to Captions.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Well, it is my pleasure, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say, because I know that you have experience, you have learned, and you are anxious to share some of the things that you have picked up from this young man, who is a lecturer, an educator, a writer, a mentor. I tell you, he's like the Pied Piper. There's so many people he has touched, and to some degree he's been recognized. He's been inducted in the African American Hall of Fame.
Great.
And he also was one of the recipients of the Martin Luther King Award just recently.
Well deserved.
Agbara, it's always a pleasure. I didn't forget exactly how many years we go back, but I tell you, every time I meet you, I'm inspired by you, and I'm always hearing positive things about you. Tonight, you wanted to focus on one of the things that you're doing, and you do so many, but you want to kind of focus on stop tripping over your own feet. What does that mean, stop tripping over your own feet?
Well, the title kind of tells everything about it. I think a lot of things that happens in our lives, some things are just happenstance, but many things are things that we do unconsciously that either creates success. We want that to be conscious, but a lot of things that happens to us that makes us sabotage our own behavior is unconscious behavior. So we call that tripping over your own feet.
I see. I know many years ago when I talked with you, in fact, I think you were working on your graduate degree on self-handicapping behavior, and I assumed that would be the same thing, tripping over your own feet. In other words, making yourself your main enemy in terms of your behavior and your thought process and that type of a thing. I understand that these two gentlemen have been a part of a class of yours, and you brought them to kind of let them share what they have learned or what they have experienced in their life and how they have hopefully prevented from tripping over their own feet and having self-handicapping behavior, and hopefully what they have to say will inspire many that will be listening tonight to see where their behavior is, how that behavior may be holding them back. I personally know that in some cases the greatest limitations we have is in our own mind.
Definitely.
And if we can overcome that, we can grow by leaps and bounds. Would you want to introduce the fellas that you have and what they're going to talk about?
Yes, but before I do that,
Okay.
I just want to say that at Illinois Central College, we're getting a tremendous influx of students, and we're finding that many students are academically unprepared, but they're also socially and emotionally unprepared. So as a result, the college has designed these classes that are called the Psych 104 class.
Okay.
They're kind of like a college transition class. Some of the things that traditionally have been focused upon in these classes are like memorization, note-taking, procrastination, and all those kind of things. I call those more traditional kind of things. But then the new class, the Psych 104, used to be Psychology 114 evolved. And this class, primarily one that I teach, focused upon is the minority student success.
Okay.
Dr. Rita Ali was kind of instrumental in that class, and the class allows me as an instructor to focus upon the unique needs and challenges facing African American students. So I had the opportunity, along with some other techs, to implement the Stop Tripping curriculum, because we find that most of the students that are dropping out, there are some academic issues, but most of the issues have to do with things outside of the classroom, things that the self-handicapping strategies come in, coming to school late, the drama that's going on outside their lives. Most of the students that we're seeing now, many are involved with the criminal justice system. Many have to not attend class because of court, violence and things outside. I would say that most of the students that I work with have witnessed a traumatic life event. Friends, they either witnessed a homicide or know someone who has been involved with one. So there's a lot of post-traumatic stress that's going on with many of the students. And one of the things that stimulates self-handicapping behavior is traumatic life events. So these two gentlemen here, Maury Douglas and Carlos Jones, as well as we have another student here, were probably one of the actually they were the first students who I had the opportunity to teach using the Stop Tripping curriculum. We found that utilizing that particular curriculum, the class, one of the issues with the other curriculum that was involved in this particular class went from a 114 to a 104 because of the retention issues. Students were coming, but because the curriculum wasn't relevant to them, there was a low retention component. So with talking to the college and having the opportunity to implement this, we found a greater rate of retention. But we also talked about things that were relevant to the student and going on with the students' lives.
Right.
So these two guys, these are two of my main guys with the Harvest and Dream. Maury has been called many times to present in other classrooms with these principles and things, and he's also the radio component and an ambassador. Carlos is one of our ambassadors. He helped with the radio. I don't know if he had an opportunity, but they did a outstanding job on the radio talking about some of the principles and techniques and the things that they've learned through the Stop Tripping. So I'd just like to introduce these guys and let them talk a little bit about their experiences and what it's taught them and what it means to them.
Well, that is really great. Yes, sir.
Well, first I'd like to say that to tell Mr. Bryson how much the Minority Success class has personally helped me, and the fact that being a non-traditional student, I had been to school before and had failed in every class. And after taking Mr. Bryson's class, I realized what I was doing wrong and that I was my own worst enemy. So I have turned everything around this trip around. I'm 6 hours away from completing 2 degrees.
Fantastic.
I'll be graduating in May. So I'm really excited about the techniques that I learned, and I want to pass them on to other brothers. A lot of us sometimes are living that same rut. We're comfortable with that failure because of the past experiences we've had. I've learned in the minority success class that you can change those past experiences in little baby steps so that you can start to collect good experiences which will change how you feel about yourself. Because people who fail generally have low self-esteem. I learned all of this in the minority success class. People who succeed have high self-esteem. So if you change these past experiences to good experiences, you start to build a good positive background, you start to feel good about yourself, and then you become focused.
Right.
And when you become a focused individual, there's no stopping you. And I want to thank Mr. Bryson. I mean, I wish Harvesting Dreams, who've been there the first time around, faithfully, I can say I would have succeeded. And that's why I want to be a part of it, because I see some of the young brothers going through the same things. Carlos and I talk about it, that we went through, you know, tripping over our own feet, you know, acting bad, thinking we cool and hot, when really we're not being focused, not keeping that, the prize in sight.
Yes.
Association plays a big part. You know, even sometimes your family can put you down. Those closest to you don't have faith in you and tear you down. You got to surround yourself with people who all are thinking in a positive direction. People who all want to study and go to school and become something. That's one of the main things you got to do, is you got to let those old friends go, because they'll be there when you get done. And surround yourself with new people. You got to start building positive experiences that you can rely on. And that has been a major change in my life personally, and in my success in school. So.
Well, you are a living example that setbacks are just temporary.
Certainly.
And they're not permanent. And even though you may have had failure earlier in your educational experience and other things in your life, doesn't mean that that is the way that you have to continue your life.
Certainly.
Or that will lead to the end of your life, unless in a sense you choose not to change. Now sometimes we get in the comfort zone, and sometimes it's easier, even if it's misery. It's comfortable and you don't want to take the energy, or you don't have the encouragement, or you don't have a goal to change. And so I want to congratulate you on the giant step that you've taken. And I'm not a person that can predict the future, but I would say with that attitude and with that foundation and with a mentor like Agbara, I see not only some great things that have happened, but will continue to happen.
Thank you very much.
And I just want to add, those two things that you just mentioned are in the book.
Okay.
And your self-esteem dictates whether you view a problem as a challenge or you view a challenge as a problem. So that's your level of self-esteem. But one of the things that we do attempt to teach in the class is exactly what you said, is that failure is temporary. You know, some people look at not achieving their goals as forever. But in our class, we challenge our students to say that your failures are temporary. So that's a component. The other thing that you touched upon too is part of the thing that we talk about is the consistency model. Whereas people, it's very easy. You know, you say you want steak, I want steak, and we want steak, but we're eating a lot of crackers, but we want to talk about steak this, we want steak that, and give you the steak. Go back to, man, that's all right. You got any ketchup on it? No, I no ketchup. I'll get it. No, that's all right. I'll go back to crackers. Because you got used to eating crackers. So we use this as part of our self-esteem model, which is the consistency model. So those are two very important things that you just brought to the forefront that's incorporated within the Stop Tripping book.
And Mr. Bryson, if I may add, that's really what helped me, is coming from that consistency model to the self-enhancement model. in which you really work on self. You know, self has a lot to do socially. Self has a lot to how you view yourself, has a lot to do with it. And the minority success class will change how you view yourself in a positive direction.
Absolutely. Carlos, you want to kind of share what you've experienced from the class or from life and how it's affected your behavior and thought process?
Yeah, I want to first just thank Dennis and yourself for allowing me to be on this broadcast. You know, there was a time from the past mistakes that I've made, I was on a broadcast for another purpose. So I'm grateful to have this opportunity to be on here for something positive. You know, I thank Mr. Bryson, you know, because the Stop Tripping manual, just the class itself, was an opportunity for me to know myself, to understand myself, to identify my strengths and weaknesses that I never really saw before. And that class also helped me meet this great brother here, you know, because I wouldn't have never met him, you know, if it wasn't for that class. So that class played a lot of purposes for me. You know, I've got to learn a great teacher. I've got to meet a great friend, you know, and brother. So that's one thing that I love about the class. The curriculum itself, I was one that a lot of death was spoken over my life. You know, from, you know, a lot of us generationally, we come from either dysfunctional families. Out of that dysfunction, if the mother had to raise us, out of stress of trying to be both the male and the female, they do their best, and sometimes that best may mean, well, this is a boy I'm raising, so I have to be tough with him, so I might curse him out more, or I might talk stronger to him more, thinking that that's helping us, not realizing that's planting a lot of damaging seeds in us.
Yes.
So I was a product of that seed, you know, of what was thought was best for me, but it really wasn't best for me. So it took me to have to come to college. And by the way, I made a mistake, sir, way back in high school. You know, it was a racial incident in Bloomington Normal. You know, that's where I stayed for a short while, and it kind of messed up my educational career. I was an athlete, you know, bound to go to college for football and academically. But a racial incident happened to where I got expelled because I didn't respond properly. You know, I let a label cause me to give a physical reaction that messed me up for so many years. And when I go to the schools and I'm allowed to speak to the high school students, one of the things I tell them is that every decision that y'all make in high school is going to follow you the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
Listen to me. Said I'm in my 30s and I'm still trying to make up from a decision that I made way back in high school. So to make a long story short, I self-handicapped myself because I programmed a thought in my mind and said, well, it's too late for me.
Right.
You know, there's no use for me to go to college because I've already damaged myself. And then thinking that way, as you were stating earlier before the show started, how when death is spoken to you, you can do two things: die or become successful in something. Well, my mindset was I'm going to prove everybody wrong, but I did it through a wrong channel. You see what I'm saying? I used my talents for the streets and not for what I'm doing now. So it took me to go to college, which was by faith. And it took Mr. Bryson, you know, I was one of them hard weeds, you know, that our grandparents couldn't stand because he constantly, for a whole semester, I denied him, rejected him, but he never gave up on me.
Right.
He always saw something in me. So when I finally went, the first thing I learned about self-handicapping was how I was hurting my own self for so many years. How one of the, it's 3 types of tripping that the book talks about. You have low, moderate, and chronic. When you tripping low, you are forming stumbling blocks. For instance, like, you know, the high retention rate that he was talking about. Many of them that we learned in that class did not even know what they wanted to be.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, didn't know what they wanted to major in, number one. Couldn't even tell you how to find out how to schedule their classes, which means they didn't even have the understanding that they needed to open the school catalog. You know, this was a stumbling block. That's a low, you know, tripping that the books talks about. Then it goes deeper to the moderate, where it's the negative self-talk that we do to ourselves. And that helped me, you know, it brought tears to my eyes by myself when I went home, because for so many years, because negativity was spoken to me, I spoke it back to myself.
Yes.
Yes.
You know, and I didn't realize I was doing that. So that's what the book did for me. You know, it's one thing to open up a spiritual book and be spiritually enlightened, but it's still a total man. You know, I still need to be enlightened mentally. I still need to be enlightened emotionally. And that book helped enlighten me, you know, emotionally and mentally. I didn't realize that it ain't about what somebody say about me, but it's about what I'm saying to myself.
Right.
The third thing is the chronic, you know, way of tripping, which is that's when you're at war with yourself. And that's what we're seeing in the streets of Peoria right now. You know, many of us, our culture, at war with themselves, you know, being self-destructive. You know, they have a I don't care mindset. You can't tell me nothing mindset. It's all about me mindset. And I'm just grateful that Mr. Bryson saw me as an ambassador. You know, you don't understand when, you know, your own parents and family tree might not see you for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But here it is, you come across somebody that don't know you from a can of paint or have heard of you, but they see great things in you. So that was very uplifting for me. And I don't fault my family, because sometimes you got to lay in the bed you make.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so a lot of the choices that I was making when I was tripping, self-handicapping myself, it made my family see me that way. But that wasn't the real me.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And Mr. Bryson is anointed, I would say, to be able to peel off the layers.
Yes.
And go up under them layers and help you find the real you. Because if I had just went off of what everybody else thought, I wouldn't see myself as an ambassador. I wouldn't see myself as a college student. I see myself as a failure, a formal jailbird that'll never make nothing out of his life. So just college itself, self-handicapping, you know, the Stop Tripping manual has really enlightened me, and it's helping me enlighten others. You can't harvest nobody else's dreams if you haven't harvested your own.
Right.
You know, so I had to learn to bring life back to dreams that I thought was dead.
Right.
And now that I'm able to do that, I can help bring life back to somebody else's. You know, and that's the purpose of what Harvesting Dreams is all about. And this manual, Stop Tripping, that's a primary tool, sir. It's a primary tool that is needed not just in the high schools, but in the streets, I would say.
Right.
You know, in the streets, period, because so many people are dying, losing their freedom, all because they're at war with themselves,
Right.
all because they tripping. Don't think they tripping, but they really is tripping. You know, so I just thank you guys for just giving me this opportunity. You know, I thank Mr. Bryson. I thank you. I thank Dennis for seeing great things in me, and not seeing me by what I did, but seeing me by what I'm doing and what I'm capable of doing even more after.
What a powerful message.
Yes.
In fact, it's emotionally stirring. I'm so glad that the two of you are sharing with the many viewers tonight, young men like yourself, who hopefully will hear what you have to say and will be inspired by what you say. Agbara he's a great young man. He has gone from athletics and making a name to academic.
Amen.
And making a name. And he's a homeboy. He didn't come here from foreign places. He's grown up here in the streets, and he's chosen to stay in touch with young men like you. I know when he first went to work for ICC, he was interested in recruiting, getting young men, all men, and particularly black men, to give ICC a try. And he set up special classes and special programs, of which obviously you must have listened, read, and most important, soaked in a lot of things that he said. I'm certain he's proud to hear you say some of the things that he said to you, and that will let him know that he's not just talking for the sake of talking, but obviously it is impacting and affecting your lives. And I would say that the two of you are just representative of the many others that are in the class as well as those that are in your life, because it has a rippling effect. Hopefully, if you have younger brothers or sisters or homeboys that run with you, they'll see that difference in attitude. And you know, I'm glad that, first of all, you had to have had a dream to harvest.
Definitely.
And a lot of young men, unfortunately, and a lot of young black men don't even have a dream. I mean, they, as has been told to me a number of times, when some young men are asked, well, where do you see yourself in 5 years? They're talking about, I don't even think I'll be alive in 5 years, that type of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, when you live in that kind of environment, or they're afraid to try because they may not make it, they're afraid of failure. And as I tell people, I would rather fail trying to be or do something than succeed in doing nothing. And that's the challenge, is to be all you can be and be the best that you can be. General, I am so glad that you have shared with us in this segment. And Mr. Bryson, I understand that we're going to have another one of your students to come, and the two of you are going to continue to talk about some of the things that Carlos and Maury have talked about. And I hope that the things that have been said here during this segment have reached out and touched you, inspired you, to motivate you, to educate you. And please, call your friends, call your neighbors, call your young men that you have contact with into the room. I'm certain that they will enjoy the second segment. We'll be right back.